For decades, trade between nations has been the silent force shaping empires, economies, and entire geopolitical landscapes. But now a new chapter is being written, one that might redefine the contours of global commerce. At the center of this turning point stand two countries, one an ancient civilization surging forward with youthful ambition, and the other a post-imperial power seeking to find its new place in the world. India and the United Kingdom, two nations bound by a complicated colonial past, are now poised to reshape the future together. The India-UK Free Trade Agreement, often overlooked amid more dramatic headlines, is in fact one of the most strategically important deals being negotiated anywhere in the world today, and not just because it connects nearly 1.7 billion people, or because the two economies together represent over $5 trillion in GDP. No, the deeper significance lies in the kind of signal this deal sends to the rest of the world, that India is no longer just a rising power, it is already central to the future of global trade. To understand why this deal matters so much, we first need to grasp what's at stake. For the UK, this agreement isn't just another trade pact, it's about survival and reinvention. Post-Brexit Britain has been adrift, searching for new markets, new partners, and a new identity. Europe is no longer home, and the special relationship with the United States, while rhetorically intact, doesn't deliver the economic lifeline the UK needs. In this context, India becomes more than a trading partner, it becomes a strategic anchor. For India, the motivations are equally complex, but far more ambitious. This is not about nostalgia or diplomacy, it's about building a new supply chain architecture where India isn't simply a participant, it's the hub. A successful FTA with the UK opens more than just tariff-free access to British markets. It opens doors to global finance, to advanced technology transfer, and to an entirely new tier of international prestige. At the heart of the deal are the details: tariff reductions on goods, increased access for services, investment protections, and regulatory harmonization. But behind those negotiations is a bigger story. It's about who sets the rules of trade in the 21st century. Will it be the closed state-controlled systems favored by authoritarian regimes, or the open rules-based architecture that democracies like India and the UK still advocate for? The stakes are enormous. Consider this: India's exports to the UK stood at around $11 billion in 2023, while UK exports to India were roughly $7 billion. Those numbers may not seem groundbreaking yet, but the potential upside is massive. Projections suggest that a well-structured FTA could boost bilateral trade by over 70% within the next decade. Sectors like textiles, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, digital services, and green energy stand to benefit the most. And then there's the people dimension. Both countries are home to a highly skilled workforce. India is the largest source of skilled immigrants to the UK, and Indian students make up a substantial portion of British universities. Any trade deal that makes it easier for professionals, researchers, and entrepreneurs to move between the two countries could unlock innovation at a scale not seen before. There's also a larger geopolitical signal being sent here. In an era where protectionism is rising and global institutions are under stress, India and the UK striking a major FTA sends a message that liberal trade is not dead. It's being redefined, not by the old Atlantic powers, but by new actors, flexible, ambitious, and globally minded. But this isn't just about India and the UK. The entire world is watching. If this deal succeeds, it creates a template for how emerging economies can strike mutually beneficial partnerships with developed ones. It could become a model for how democracies can collaborate across hemispheres to build economic resilience in a post-China global order. And yet, none of this is inevitable. Negotiations have stalled more than once. Issues like tariffs on whiskey, access to financial services, and labor mobility remain sticking points. Political cycles in both countries add pressure. The UK faces elections. India is recalibrating its global economic strategies in light of its increasing clout. The window for sealing this deal isn't wide, it's now. Still, even amidst these tensions, there is momentum. The urgency on both sides is real, because the logic of the deal is too strong to ignore. Britain needs access. India needs scale. Britain offers capital and technology. India offers markets and labor. It's a natural fit, one made stronger by cultural connections, a shared language, and a growing sense of strategic alignment. But here's the real reason this deal matters, because it represents a shift in how we think about global trade. For too long, trade agreements have been the realm of technocrats and diplomats. But today, they are strategic tools, levers of power, influence, and vision. The India-UK deal is not just about goods and services, it's about how two democracies, separated by history, but united by opportunity, can together rewrite the future of commerce. For the United Kingdom, navigating a post-Brexit world has meant redefining its role in global trade. The old European umbrella no longer shields it, nor limits it. This new freedom has propelled London to seek out fresh trade routes, partners, and economic allies. And India, with its booming consumer base, digital economy, and global manufacturing ambitions, has emerged not just as a partner, but as a pivotal bridge to the future. This trade deal is not merely transactional, it's transformational. For Britain, it represents access to a market of over 1.4 billion people. For India, it opens a gateway into Western capital markets, global financial services, and cutting-edge technology. Each side brings strengths the other craves. India wants deeper investment in its startups, stronger pathways for its goods, and access to innovation. The UK in turn seeks cheaper goods, skilled labor, and a piece of Asia's growth story. But it's not just about what each country wants, it's about what they symbolize. This deal tells the world that old colonial ties are being rewritten into economic partnerships, that empire and dependence are giving way to sovereign mutuality, that the future of trade is not in domination, but cooperation. And at the heart of it all is timing. The United States is tangled in its own domestic politics. China is under growing scrutiny over supply chain control and strategic aggression. Europe is still recalibrating after the energy and security shocks of recent years. Into that void steps India, a rising democracy with scale, skill, and ambition, and the UK, a legacy power with institutional depth and global networks. Together they are sending a message to the world that trade is not dead, that globalization is not retreating, it's being redefined, realigned, and India is central to that new alignment. We are witnessing a changing of gears in global economics. And what makes this moment historic is not the speed of change, but the direction of it. Power is not shifting just from west to east, but from centralized blocks to agile partnerships. And this deal is a case study in what that future looks like. The sectors touched by this trade agreement are diverse and strategically chosen. In pharmaceuticals, the UK gets access to affordable high-quality generics and vaccines produced at scale in India, while Indian firms gain streamlined regulatory access to the UK's National Health Service and private markets. In textiles, Indian exports will face fewer tariffs, allowing more of its handcrafted and mass-produced garments to flood British markets, just as consumers seek ethical global alternatives. And then there's technology. India is already one of the world's fastest-growing digital economies, with 1 billion smartphone users and a homegrown payments infrastructure that outpaces even Silicon Valley's. British firms want a stake in this growth. From fintech to clean tech, the UK sees India as the launchpad for its next era of global innovation. This deal gives them a seat at that table, but perhaps the most transformative aspect lies in services. Indian professionals, its specialists, architects, financial analysts, will now face fewer barriers to work in the UK. Visa caps will be relaxed, recognition of qualifications will improve, and in turn, Britain will gain access to the very human capital it needs to stay competitive in a post-European world. For India, this represents a subtle but important victory, a recognition that its human talent is not just abundant, but indispensable, that the West no longer holds a monopoly on innovation or expertise, and that mutual respect, not just market access, is now the currency of modern trade. Meanwhile, agriculture and food sectors are also quietly transforming. British exporters will now more easily ship high-quality cheese, meat, and beverages into a growing Indian middle class hungry for premium global brands, and Indian agribusinesses will benefit from a more receptive UK market for processed foods and spices. It's not just trade, it's taste, culture, lifestyle, and aspiration that are being exchanged. But beyond commerce and industry, this deal carries strategic implications. It is not merely a bilateral agreement, it is a statement to the world that India and the UK are aligning for the future. In a time when multilateralism is under pressure, when the WTO struggles to assert relevance, this deal shows that agile, like-minded democracies can bypass gridlock and craft meaningful economic arrangements. Geopolitically, the message is even stronger. The UK post-Brexit has been searching for relevance in a rapidly polarizing global order. It has looked east, not west, for its next great partner. India, with its population, its GDP trajectory, and its stable democratic institutions, is the obvious choice. And for India, this deal is a step in a larger plan, a plan to emerge not just as a trading nation, but as a rule-maker in global trade, a country that not only supplies labor, but also shapes labor mobility laws, a nation that doesn't just absorb foreign capital, but exports capital and standards of its own. This is not the India of the past. This is a new India, assertive, confident, and deeply embedded in the future of the global economy. Investors are watching. Other countries are watching. Australia, Canada, the Gulf nations, all have seen how deftly India navigated this agreement with a Western partner, and many are drawing up similar roadmaps. The India-UK deal is not just a destination, it's a blueprint. It also marks a psychological turning point. For decades, Western nations approached India primarily as a development partner, or worse, a charity case. Today, they negotiate with India as an equal, often with the awareness that they may need India more than India needs them. That is not a narrative shift. It's a tectonic one, and it raises a broader question. If a rising India can strike such a deal with a G7 economy, what happens next? Already, the ripple effects are visible. The European Union, once cautious about India's trade posture, is warming up to a comprehensive trade agreement. Asian nations, watching India closely after the RCEP withdrawal, now see renewed possibility for bilateral pacts. Even the United States, often hesitant, has initiated deeper strategic economic dialogues, aware that India's role in global supply chains is no longer optional. India's demographic strength is part of this transformation, but it's not the whole story. What's different today is the emergence of a structured economic ambition. India is no longer merely opening its market. It is carefully crafting the kind of trade it wants, the kind of investments it seeks, and the kind of partners it prefers. It's choosing quality over quantity. It is learning from past trade disappointments, from the dangers of dumping, from unchecked imports, from asymmetrical liberalization, and it is correcting its course, without isolating itself. This is where the India-UK deal becomes symbolic. It reflects trust, but more than that, it reflects India's growing negotiating maturity. It shows that India can be protectionist when necessary, but pragmatic when the conditions are right, that it can be nationalistic in tone, but globalist in execution. This balance, the ability to be open and strategic, is what distinguishes great economic powers from mere market hubs. And the UK, for its part, has displayed rare political courage. While many developed nations have grown skeptical about trade agreements, fearful of political backlash, the UK has leaned into economic liberalization post-Brexit. It recognizes that its future as a trading powerhouse lies not in its colonial past, but in a modern partnership with emerging economies. India fits this vision perfectly. Together, the two nations are sending a clear signal. Economic nationalism and global cooperation are not opposites. With mutual respect, transparency, and vision, trade deals can empower rather than exploit. The India-UK trade deal is more than a bilateral agreement. It's a symbol of a shifting world, a world no longer chained to the old binaries of East and West, colonizer and colonized, developed and developing. It's a signal that a new kind of globalization is taking root, one that prizes reciprocity over dominance, agility over bureaucracy, and dignity over dependency. For global businesses, this deal is a strategic green light. It tells them where momentum is building, where the next centers of gravity lie. For policymakers, it is a case study in how to blend domestic interests with global ambition, without losing either. And for the public, it is proof that when leaders act with clarity, courage and fairness, even centuries of history can be rewritten, not by erasing the past, but by outgrowing it. India is no longer just participating in global trade. It is shaping its architecture. And the UK, post-Brexit, is no longer adrift, but anchoring itself in new relevance. Together, they are not just negotiating terms, they are redefining what trade can mean in a multipolar world. This is not the end of the journey, only the beginning. But if the direction holds, this deal may be remembered not just as an economic milestone, but as a diplomatic masterstroke, one that bent the arc of global trade toward balance, dignity, and shared progress.